Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Carnabucci, here in the Lancaster School of Psychodrama and Experiential Psychotherapies in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And as you know, I love to talk about experiential therapy, psychodrama, and all that other kind of experiential learning that really deepens our practices, whether we are educators, therapists, or other health and helping professionals. And today I am here with Adena Bangalese, a social worker and a certified psychodramatist, and a very dear friend,
Yes.
and an expert in trauma, and so much more, but also a author of the newly revised book, Covert Emotional Incest. And we are here to learn about her book, why the revisions have become important, and what you as a helping and healing professional can learn about this very important yet often neglected topic. Hello, Adena.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
This is
of
awesome.
course. Of
Okay.
course. Well, I want
I'm,
us, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm ready for any questions you have for me.
Yes. Well, the first question I have is to make sure we're on the same page as we talk about this very important topic. What is covert emotional incest?
Okay. So I'm just gonna read it right from my book, and that is CEI, which we'll call it from here on out, is a subtle form of sexual abuse. It's within the family system, often without direct genital contact. And it's characterized by four core elements. The first one is called triangulation. The second is a breach of the intergenerational boundary. Third is the child being assigned a surrogate or substitute spouse and confidant role. And the fourth is objectification. So let's go through each one of those. Triangulation, family therapy term, where caregivers are not using the skills to deal directly with each other in their relationship. So they use one or more of their children as an intermediary. So it creates the triangle. Adults, adult, adult, and then child's supposed to be down here. But what happens is a child jumps up and is in a peer spousal role to one or both of the parents due to what the system needs, because the parents are not, they don't have the skills, or they're not exercising the skills to deal directly with each other in their relationship. So that's the triangulation. The breach of the intergenerational boundary, family therapy term. There should be a boundary between adults and children. For example, the adult caregivers need to be a unified executive committee in terms of being able to parent or rear the kids. The kids need to know, what are the limits? What are the rules? What are the boundaries? What can I get away with? What I can't get away with? That keeps them safe. What happens in this triangulation when the kid jumps up to be a peer is that generational boundary goes away, or it's intermittent and it's not always there. And it can be very confusing. Am I an adult here? Am I a peer? Am I a kid? What role am I in this family? So sometimes we hear, oh, my child is my best friend. Danger. And I know there are many different definitions of best friend, but I would just say in terms of roles, we have to be very clear. And we are both psychodramatists. We deal a lot with roles and appropriate roles. We have to be very careful that children have a voice in their family system, but they don't make the major decisions for the family. The adults need to make the major decisions. They need to show up. Okay. Excuse me. So that spousal role. A lot of people ask me, Karen, why do you call it incest? Why don't you just call it enmeshment? Why don't you just call it parentification? Like, I became the parent of my parent, or I had to parent the other kids. Why do you call it spousal role, or why do you call it incest? Because when I'm in a spousal role, that role is a sexual role, whether there's physical sex happening or not. And that sexual energy is getting transmitted to that child without any words being spoken. So it could be very subtle. The number of people I've worked with who said, I just felt icky. I felt like there was the sexual energy, like my father was coming on to me, or my mother was attracted to me, or I heard from my mom about all this, her sexual escapades outside the relationship of my father, or there was sexual content and sometimes nothing, but they could just feel the energy. And kids are energetic sponges. That's what they pick up. They live in the emotional, energetic space between the caregivers, between the adults, without ever really knowing why or having a story to tell or explain the way we can as an adult. And then objectification is this kid ends up being an object, being used for the adult's needs rather than the adults being there to meet the child's needs. And for me, the basic definition of child abuse in general is when the parents are not there to meet the child's needs, the kids are there to meet their needs. So rather than a human, they become an object and not respected, feelings are not talked about, boundaries aren't respected, etc. So that's where we start.
In this book, even in the original version, Adena, you tell your own story. So this is not simply a clinical story with discussions of other people, people you've
Right.
worked with, for example, but you tell your own story and you're very open about sharing what happened to you growing up in your family.
Yes. So we call this an educational memoir. So it is my experience, and I try to illustrate CEI through my own experience with my parents, um, where I was a confidant and surrogate spouse to both of them. That doesn't always happen that way, but that was my case. And talk to you about the things that I went through and the kind of symptoms that I developed and difficulties that I developed in terms of identity, emotional regulation, relationships, go through all of that. And within that are what we call teaching boxes, where we learn about things called reenactment, about how trauma we can be attracted to the same type of people over and over. We can try to do the same things over and over and expect different results. And we see that in young children. Young children show their trauma through their play in themes over and over. And you do sand tray, and I know that you've seen things over and over in the clients that you've worked with. Because I know you work with adults, but both of us in working with adults work with very young childhood roles or childhood parts because they're in there, and we know that. So uh, that is a very important, that's the first, I don't know, 150 pages or so of the book. And the book is now at 292. So there's about 100 pages of specifically for clinicians. There are composite case vignettes where I describe there's I think four different people, different ethnicities, different family system setups about how this can show up. And then talking about the kind of treatment that they got, specifically the interventions, effective modalities, and experiential is in there because that's what I do as well. I am somebody who has combined all the knowledge I have over the 40 years that I've been studying and the foundations for what I call ABL trauma responsive psychodrama. That's my model. It is a foundation of interpersonal neurobiology that was founded by Dan Siegel, internal family systems by Dr. Richard Schwartz, psychodrama, Dr. J.L. Moreno. I use from Kate Hudgens and Francesca Toscani. I use a lot of the therapeutic spiral model structures to create safety, because if we don't have safety, we have nothing. And that is the first and foremost piece to do with this population. Mindfulness techniques. So you get a variety of what does the therapy look like, and then what are the behavior changes based on the experiential and the safety that's created before we do any behavior change. And also talking about Judith Herman's three-phase model, which is safety, stabilization, and then integration community. and following that.
That's a lot to synthesize and put together. So, can you give our viewers, especially those who are psychotherapists or working in another clinical role, in having a person come in, a person who either suspects they have experienced CEI or knows they have?
Right.
You mentioned that you work with safety first. How do you, using all these different models that you've collected and synthesized, create safety for that individual?
So that's where trauma responsive comes in. And to be trauma responsive, I have to be trauma informed first. So I need to know that when somebody walks into my office, they have some form of trauma. If they're going to come to a clinical social worker, they have some form of trauma in their family of origin, in their current system. It could be covert emotional incest. It could be physical sexual abuse. It could be food insecurity. It could be housing insecurity. I mean, whatever it is, there's some form of trauma. One of the things I don't do is I do not take a detailed his childhood history intake. And I'm going to tell you why I don't do that for safety. I don't do that because many of my clients have come to me saying, I left so-and-so's office because they give me this sheet that I have to fill out and tell my whole trauma history. And I can't do that. That's too re-traumatizing for me. And I don't know this person and I'm not ready to tell anything. So I start off with just my kindness, my warmth, my professional manner. I offer a 20-minute free interview session for people so that they can meet me. They can, when I had my private practice, they'd be able to come in my office and sit in my office so they could feel the space. I really empowered them as educated consumers. And I let them know my model. I let them know how I work. And I said, this might not work for you. Let's see if we're a match. It wasn't, you're coming to the expert, I'm the doctor, you have to listen to me. So immediately building a rapport and empowering them that they are a very significant part of this therapeutic relationship. And never pressing. I would ask the question of, what do you feel safe enough for me to know about you right now and what brings you here? And we would do an intake over 3 or 4 sessions. And right now in Arizona, where I'm licensed, we have that time to create a treatment plan. I don't know about other states. You may have to create that sooner. But when I was in private practice, that's what I did. I am not in private practice right now. I actually work in an inpatient residential setting. And in order to create safety with the groups that I do, because I only do group now, I don't do individual anymore, is when we know from trauma-informed principles is voice and choice. You always have a say here. You can always say no, thank you. Everything I offer is an invitation or a suggestion. You can always decline an invitation and say no, thank you to a suggestion. That is welcomed here. I celebrate the no. People look at me like I'm crazy. You feel safe enough to say no to me that you don't have to please me. I love that. And I learned that from Pia Melody. I didn't make that up. Pia Melody always said, celebrate the no. And I can see when people are rigid and then they, okay, so I don't have to fully participate. I don't have to tell you everything right now. No, I don't want you to. That's not healthy boundaries. I want you to be careful with that. Especially in an outpatient setting, I want you to really titrate what you tell me because you have to go out and drive home and you have to be whatever you have to be afterwards instead of feeling so exposed and then re-traumatized and didn't even realize it. One of the signs of this kind of boundary violation with CEI is that I just say too much or I don't say anything. We go into the extremes as we do with trauma. So I want to help someone really titrate that. And I will say to them, that's enough right now. Let's stop right there. So that's a lot of how I begin to create safety. You have a voice here and you absolutely have choice. And it's okay if you're an initial 20-minute meeting, you say, you know what, you're not the person for me. It's okay. This is not about them meeting my need. And I can't emphasize that enough, no matter what setting you're in, that this is part of the ethics and this is part of the transference, countertransference that we have to watch out for in working with this population. They are not here to meet my need to feel special, to feel needed, to feel like a good therapist. No, absolutely not. I need to be the healthy reparenter in that role to provide them with appropriate boundaries. So our appointments are they're scheduled. Yes, there's flexibility, but there needs to be routine. There needs to be structure with flexibility. Things need to start on time and end on time. There can't be whenever you feel like contacting me during the week. There needs to be a policy. I had a policy. You get a free 15 minutes every week if you needed to contact me in between sessions. After that, I billed on the 15 minutes. And 15 minutes did not build up. So at the end of a month, if you didn't use it, you get an hour. No. But that's all clear in the consent for treatment. So creating my policy was another way of creating safety and talking about confidentiality and making sure that they understood the limits of confidentiality. I hope that's a helpful answer for people.
Yeah, yeah. So I see that you are making very clear agreements so that you present yourself differently than that adult or adults that person experienced in their own family, where things were very fuzzy, very unclear,
Yes.
rules were very unclear. Yes.
Yes, yes, because I want them to know, yes, that's what creates safety. I want them to know where the limits are. And the warmth and kindness with structure and good boundaries, I think that's healthy parenting.
So I know that there's a lot involved in treating a person who has experienced covert emotional incest. And I want to be aware of our time.
Yeah.
But can you tell us just a couple of other points that are really important when working with this particular population?
For you to know that it exists and for you to be asking questions about boundaries in families. Things like, did you have locks on doors? Did you have privacy in the bathroom? When was that? Um, Sometimes we would do a family sculpt and I would ask them, if you and so put some stuffed animals out or some scarves or something, and could you please show me what your family of origin looked like, what your current family looks like? And people would describe that, or they would make that sculpture, and we'd be able to then, excuse me, go from there and see where they were right next to mom, for example. And I'd say, okay, so you're very close to mom. Yes, we were best friends. We were very close. What kinds of things did you talk about? That's the kind of questions that I, get in and be able to have the listening ear for, but not the fact that I would hear it everywhere. And I want to say that also. Um, I know the difference between somebody being close and jumping the line. I just had a professional ask me about that, and I talked about how when my son became 18, I went from being a mother to more of the role of consultant for him. Mother being made sure he had all his doctor's appointments. I was consistently giving him feedback. Even when for most of his life, I asked, do you want to just vent? Do you want to just talk? Or do you want me to say something? But in his teenage years, that got more prominent. And once he hit 18, I always say that. So the many ways, let's come back, the many ways to treat that. What keeps coming to my mind is the CEI inventory. And I'm thinking about, I got that from a gentleman who does not live in the United States. They did research on this and they came up with this inventory. And I'm going to ask permission if we can put it in the link here for people to have it so that they know they could possibly give it to their clients or they could use it as a template for questions to raise curiosity about this, because that's the thing I think I want to say most is stay curious about this and help your clients to stay curious about this. It's really important that if you are not comfortable with speaking the word incest, if you're not comfortable about speaking about sexual content, that you not work with this population, because you have to be very straightforward. You can't be nervous about it. You have to be able to speak it matter of factly and be able to say, this is what this is called. This is what this is called. And this is why this is called this. So in the book, I talk about how I use psychodrama in a combination with internal family systems, interpersonal neurobiology, where people practice to be in new roles, to get out of the spousal role. What would the role be with my mom and dad, or moms or dads or whoever, if I wasn't in that role? They practice taking care of the young child who didn't get to be a child, and they get to practice being a parent to that child now with support. I think individual in the beginning and group is critical for this population. I see it all the time in treatment. The support from others and the modeling of mothers of choice, fathers of choice, grandparents of choice, aunts and uncles of choice, siblings of choice has been so healing for people, because they grew up, that's what they thought was normal. And it was for them because that was their home. But they get to experience different things when they're around other people who are working on themselves and trying to get better.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate that you're speaking up about the importance of psychodrama, in particular, experiential therapies in general, using props like chairs and scarves and stuffed animals and other objects.
It's a must for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way that I know how to do work. It's the only, to be honest, for me, it's the only thing that I've seen has lasting results. I know EMDR and somatic experiencing are very powerful, and there are other somatic modalities that are powerful. This is the one that works for me. This is the one that fits for me. And so for anybody out there, find the model, find the methodology and techniques that really resonate with you, that feel like they're you. Is I did EMDR training back in the early 2000s, and I wanted to be, if I'm a trauma therapist, I have to do EMDR. That's what I thought. It didn't fit my personality. This fits my personality. That's why I think it works so well. And the other thing that I'll say is doubling from psychodrama. So the doubling is the most important, most powerful modality that I use all the time. And the double means for me that I am in the role of someone's heart. And that's how I explain it to them. May I have permission to sit next to you? May I have permission to be in the role of your heart and say something that I think is in there? And you get to check out with your own heart and gut. And if it's accurate, or any of it's accurate, you put your own words to it. You say it out loud, because your whole body and all your parts or roles need to hear it. And if it's not accurate, we just throw it out, because I could be wrong. 99% they give me permission. Sometimes people say I'm not ready for that. That's totally fine. Remember, celebrate the no. So if they say yes, this is the double role for me, is about the skill of empathy. And if I'm a clinician of some sort, then I have that role, I have that skill of empathy. But working in this way for this many years, I've honed that skill very well. And I've honed the skill, and this is not about bragging, it's just how well we get, how good we get as psychodramatists, I think. People think, how did you know that? Did you read my mind? Did you, like, you do magic? No, this is called empathy. And I can feel it. And I've also heard so many clients, and I can feel it, I can see it, and I can hear it. So I would say something like, I felt so close to my parent, and at the same time, there was some stuff that was icky that I didn't like. Oh my God, that's exactly it. Something like that. So the double role is, it's intense, And people have told me, you help me go so deep so quickly in that with that double role, that that's as much as they can handle when they're new to therapy. So doing a double is very different than saying, well, what I hear you saying is, when I sit next to someone and I say it from the I am feeling, I love my mom. I feel really close to her. And there's something that's not, it feels icky. They own it. It's powerful. Something changes and shifts. There's a catharsis. I think we call it in psychodrama the catharsis of integration, which means it's not just up here. I didn't learn it in a book. It's not just a primal scream. It's an alignment. It's a whoa. This makes sense to me now. So that would be the intervention for anybody. You don't have to go through 680 hours of psychodrama training to be training in a double role and to be starting to give your feedback in that way. What would you think of that, Karen?
I love the double role.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I teach it. It is one of the first things that I teach, and I keep teaching it. And I think as I hear you talk about covert emotional incest, where the child has been objectified, essentially the child has not been seen. And,
correct.
and so the double technique supports the child in being seen, the adult being seen, the child
Exactly.
within the adult being seen, just as they are.
Correct. And that's the healing right there. Over and over and over again, being seen, being felt, being heard. That's the healing. And that's the safe enough experience that I want them to continue to have over and over and over. Because what I've seen is that the healing happens the more safe enough experiences that I have like that. That's the change of the neurons. That's the change of the behavior. My nervous system starts to calm down. It doesn't have to be in an activated state, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, collapse, whatever, now, because I can be more present with you. I can be who I am with you. I don't have to be in the defensive posture. You're not a threat. And for me, that's where the interpersonal neurobiology comes in, that is the healing agent.
That's why we love psychodrama, isn't it?
That's that's it. And people keep coming back. Just to say, in the treatment center I work in, there are people say, I will not miss any of your groups because they see how powerful the action is. And the action, and we do this in individual work, and it's very powerful and individual. I've done many of those. If you have the luxury of doing group, it is so powerful, excuse me, to feel the love and the support of the group. And one of the pieces I've added that really makes a difference now, and this comes from Kate Hudgens and Francesca Toscani from the therapeutic spiral model of psychodrama, is the circle of safety. And so when I do a group, I ask the protagonist to give a brief commercial of what they'd like to work on and how they want to feel in their body, what emotions they want to have, and what thoughts they want to have at the end of the work. This way we can review our contract and see if we got what we wanted. And then we go around, and each person in the group identifies a strength that they are bringing to the group to assist the protagonist in meeting their goals. They pick a scarf for that strength, and then they say, hi, Jane, I am bringing, I'm so and so, and I am bringing you the strength of clarity. And this scarf represents clarity because, and I'm bringing clarity in order to help you with blank. And within 2 or 3 people in, the protagonist is usually tearing because they are seen, again, they are heard, they are felt, and they know they're not alone in this. And you and I know that is such a beauty of psychodrama, because people know they're not alone. Mutual aid group, community. how much as social workers and psychodramatists, we know how important this is in the healing. And for covert emotional incest, for people who feel so alone in their experience, nobody would understand it. Nobody validates it. It has to get validated as this was harmful to you. And this has a direct correlation to the intimacy, emotional and physical intimacy problems you're having as an adult today.
We could go on,
Right.
but we won't.
We'll give people a break.
So I want to once again mention, show and mention your book. And also, I believe there's a special price right now for people who are interested. Is that correct?
Yes, we're in a pre-launch right now. Pre-launch stops on June 1st. The official launch, where the ebook will be on Amazon, is June 2nd. So if you're waiting for the Kindle version, that's June 2nd. And go on and get that. That'll be 99 cents for the Kindle version. Right now, the paperback is on for $9.99, and the link to that will be here. So you can click on the link to that. It'll go right to the page. And if you would provide a review, that would be fantastic, because that helps get the word out to the people who need it. The more reviews I get, the higher up it goes for people who are looking.
And people can learn about
Yes,
this very important topic, whether they are regular human beings or whether they are clinicians or some other health professional that has
correct.
reason to learn or learn more about this topic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you, Adena, for being
Okay,
here and for
thanks.
being.
Thank you. Same here.
Yes.